This is Mr. Wright. Today we're going to go over the distance formula. So if you look at the top of the screen, you will see the distance formula. D stands for distance. So you always start off with like a long square root, and then in the first set of parentheses, you're going to subtract your two x values, and the second set of parentheses, you subtract your two y values. So the first thing I would do is just label my 2 points. Remember, your first point is your x1 and your y1. Your second point is your x2 and your y2. Now all you have to do is plug in the numbers into the formula. So I start off with a long square root symbol. I subtract my x's. So you do 1 minus -3 and squared plus 6 minus -2 squared. So even though those numbers are negatives, you still have to have the minus in there. Then you start to evaluate it. So remember, minus a negative is the same as plus. So 1 plus 3 is 4. 6 plus 2 is 8. Next step is you square those numbers. I get 16 and 64. Add those two numbers together. I get 80. Then I do the square root of 80, and I get 8.94. You just type that into your calculator. Let's look at the one underneath of this one. First step, I'm going to label my points, x1, y1, x2, y2. I do a long square root. First set of parentheses, I subtract the x's. 7 minus -13 squared plus, then I subtract the y's. -5 minus 8 squared. So I get 7 minus -13 the same as 7 plus 13, that's 20 squared, plus -5 minus 8 is -13 squared. So if you guys have noticed, I keep those numbers in parentheses because if you don't, when you're squaring numbers, if it's negative and if it's not in parentheses, then it'll give you the wrong answer. So 20 squared is 400. When you do -13 squared, that means -13 times -13, so it turns to a positive. If you don't use parentheses, your calculator will tell you that's a negative, but that's wrong. So the answer should be positive 169. So whenever you square a number, if it's a negative and you're squaring it, it changes to a positive. So when I add those together, I get 569. Type that into your calculator, and you get 23.85. And again, at this point, make sure you keep the negative in the parentheses before you square it. It's a one mistake I see people make. Let's just do one more. So this one, there's a lot of negatives going on. We start off with our long square root. So first, I subtract the x's. -9 minus -4 squared plus, then I subtract the y's. So my y's are -5 and -8. -5 minus -8 squared. Okay, so I just do the addition first inside the parentheses. -9 plus 4, because minus a negative is plus, is -5 squared plus -5 plus 8 is +3. So again, I keep those numbers in parentheses before I square them. -5 squared turns to +25. 3 squared is 9. Add those together, I get 34. Type that into the calculator, and you get 5.29. Actually, I think that's a little bit off. I think it should be 5. Should be closer to 6. But you just type in the square root of 34 in your calculator to get that answer.